Hello and welcome everyone to With Hearts Wide Open, where we're learning to listen to our hearts, do what we love, and change the world. I'm your host, Kathy Forrest, founder of Celestial Forest Institute, and it is my great delight to share with you my friend, Kaylin Castell. Welcome, Kaylin. So excited to have you. Kaylin is the co-founder of Venus Alchemy, My Star Alchemy, and the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. In addition to writing monthly celestial timings for 25 years, she enjoys sharing these mysteries through personal readings, newsletters, YouTube videos, online summits, and teaching both online and in-person events, changing lives and perspectives from the visionary understanding that we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. It gives me chills every time I say that. and your topic today is so interesting. The sky mysteries of 2022, how to keep your heart open when it feels like hell. I think many of us can understand that right now. It's been a little wonky out there. So I know everyone's going to be excited because I am making Kaylin the host, and she's going to share a slide presentation with us today about everything that's going to be happening in 2022.
Yes, and maybe a little beyond 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got inspired to do some more things that maybe even you'll be surprised by, Kathy.
Right. Yeah.
because the mysteries have been talking to me. So
Right.
again, we're informing the mysteries, but we need to know what's going on so that we can inform them in the best ways possible. So, keeping our hearts open even when we're in hell or we feel like we're in hell. And sometimes, everybody has felt that way at some point. And so we're going to look at the upcoming planetary initiation cycles and letting go of the old. Surrender, going to be a key word. And embracing new possibilities, because that's part of the death and rebirth process. We have to let go in order for us to be able to have something new come in. And that's not always easy. Yeah. So I wanted to start with just powerful questions, right? So in fact, I've even seen it called lofty questions.
Right.
When we're asking the right questions, the universe will answer the questions. So there will be a few more questions sprinkled throughout, but I thought it might be fun to just kind of set the tone for this by asking the question, how is it I am joyously living a more magical, fun, abundant, and heart-inspired life, way better than I have ever imagined? And so it's like you're asking it because it's like saying, when you say, how is it? It's like it's already happened. It's already happened, and the universe will keep answering that question for you.
Yeah, way well.
So this is a good thing, and of course, we're reaching up to the stars and to the all that's there to really inspire us. So as always, I like to start with the largest container of what's going on. And because that kind of puts it into the framework of, we've got so many amazing events happening in 2022, and we always seem to be having amazing events happening. It seems, because you know what, we're in the turning of a great galactic year, or 26,000 year cycle. So we're at the end of the cycle and the beginning of the cycle that's kind of overlapping together. And we could say it's in the between where the greatest alchemy happens. So we're between the end and the beginning.
Right.
Right. And interestingly, Pluto, we're going to talk quite a bit about Pluto. Pluto was on this galactic cross, and this is how we know we're at the turning of a 26,000 year cycle, is the sun, when it's at 0 Capricorn, and that's representative of the new, like starting a new solar cycle. And it's when the sun reaches 0 Capricorn, we have the longest night and the shortest day in the northern hemisphere. It's opposite in the southern hemisphere. And it happens to be near galactic center. And it can only be on this cross for about 144 years every 26,000 years.
Wow.
So we could say it came within 1 degree. It moves about 1 degree every 72 years. It came within 1 degree in 1926, and it doesn't leave the 1 degree till 2070. Now, if we want to look at it a little more precisely, we could look at it from the window of 1962 to 2034. We're still in it. It's still powerful. And interestingly, in 2008, Pluto was right on this cross.
Wow.
Capricorn. So it started in, it started adding its magic, its initiatory energy, the destruction of the old so the new can come in. And interestingly, in 2008, when this happened, we had a financial crash.
Right.
That happened. And
that's
so
the first thing that went through my mind when you said that.
Right, bringing down the economic structure, and didn't bring it down entirely, but it did start that process. So we're going to look a little bit more about Pluto. It is currently here, so it's moved on, right, from the cross. It's not exactly in the cross anymore. And it's going to arrive in the constellation of the Sea Goat around 2028. And it'll go into Aquarius in 2023, not that far away. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But so just the line of the galactic plane, the plane of our galaxy, and the plane of our solar system crossing, and this is where the December solstice sun is rising. So that just a quick explanation of the amazingness that's going on, has been going on, will continue to go on, and everything is in the context of that. Everything we're going to talk about is within the context of that. So now what we're going to look at is how we're continuing to radically change Earth's destiny. Right, in 2022 and 2023. And literally on January 18th of 2022, the North Node is going to enter 29 Taurus and the South Node will enter 29 Scorpio. Now, the reason this is significant is the nodes are representing where we're headed. The North Node represents where we're heading, and the South Node represents where we're coming from. And you could say, one's the future, one's the past, but that's from a more linear way of looking at it, because it all kind of like, cycles around and whatever. But the nodes are important because they're not actually planets, and you can't look out in the sky and see them. But what you can see are the eclipses. And so when the sun, the moon, and the earth align where the nodes are, we will have a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse, depending on what phase it happens to be in. And that is visible, not always where we are, but it is visible, and it's an acceleration point. The nodes represent when there's eclipses, there's an acceleration of whatever we're holding in intention, whatever our attention is on, that kind of thing. So the eclipses are super important for that reason. And there's been a lot of research done that people say that, where the path of the eclipse crosses the planet, there's massive change that takes place over the next few years and so on. There's a lot of research done on that. We don't have time to really look at that, but we just want to recognize that there's a shift happening. So what happened was in 2020, the North Node went into Gemini and the South Node went into Sagittarius. So basically what the nodes do is, we say the planets move forward across the sky, the nodes move backwards across the sky. And so the other thing that's really significant about 29 Taurus is that is where the Pleiades are located. And that's a magical star asterism that has so much myth and lore connected to it. And I will have on my free page, you can just go to the page. You don't have to give me your email or anything, just go to the page and you can get links to all these articles that can go more in depth on some of this if you're interested, because it's really cool stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So the 0 Gemini point and the 29 Taurus point, the Pleiades cover those 2 degrees. And so the North Node can only be here every 18 and a half years. So it's not something that happens that often. And interestingly, it also connects to the sacred hoop of stars in the sky that the Dakota, the Indians, Native American Indians saw this hoop of stars in the sky. And the path of the planets, the plane of the galaxy, and the plane of the galaxy go through this sacred hoop. So it creates a cross inside the hoop of stars.
Wow.
I've got information about that as well that you can find on the free page if you to get more information about it. So what happened is the North Node actually entered this sacred hoop of stars because it came in when it was crossing. It came in on the opposite side. Usually the planets come in with the Pleiades and leave with Castor and Pollux, but it came in with Castor and Pollux and is leaving with the Pleiades because the nodes do the opposite thing, and that started in March of 2019. So by the time the nodes are leaving the sacred hoop, or the North Node is leaving the sacred hoop, it'll be almost 3 years that we've had this going on. And so that's another cool, like, something big has been happening. And if we think about, the last couple of years, it's like, yeah, something's big.
Right, absolutely. Wow.
So now, interestingly, Uranus is also in Taurus, and it's going to conjunct the North Node within 10 degrees. It'll be within 10 degrees starting on April 2nd of 2022, and it will be within 10 degrees until March of 2023. So almost a year, like 11 months-ish.
Wow.
And, yeah. And Uranus is all about radical change. Hence why we say radically changing Earth's destiny, because if we think of the North Node as the future destiny, as the direction we're moving in, and Uranus is here to say, well, is that the best direction? It comes from more of a cosmic perspective. Like, we might think we know the direction we're moving in, or we want to be moving in, but Uranus will say, it might actually be better if it was a different direction.
Right.
From a more cosmic perspective, right? So divinely inspired. And but in order to create that new direction, the old direction has to be disrupted. And so sometimes those unexpected changes or events that come can feel like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. It's kind of like getting a wake-up call, being in a car accident, or or something happens where you're just like, whoa, didn't see that coming. But it gets your attention. And so or another way I've often like to refer to it is, it's like when the seed has to break open in order for something new to come forth. And so that's essentially what Uranus is going to do. It's like, what does it take to break open the seed so the potential of what's really there can come forth in a new way, a fresh way, and an exciting way, an expansive way. And of course, Uranus can get bored if things stay the same way too long. So so we need to change it up, right? So that's what Uranus is going to be really activating collectively for us this coming year in 2022 into 2023. It'll be exactly conjunct the North Node on July 31st. And also then in the sign of the North Node will be in Taurus and South Node in Scorpio until July 17th of 2023, when it moves into Aries, Libra. And that's a whole other story that we'll have to talk about. Because there's a whole lunar standstill thing happening with that. There's a whole lot of other magic happening with the Aries Libra axis. Wow. It's kind of amazing. But anyway, and then also in 2023, Pluto will exactly square the nodes. And that will create more opportunity for change. So now, if you don't feel like you got all this, that's okay, because this presentation will be available on the free page, and you can come back and look at it all you want. Anyway, so having the courage to surrender and let go, because oftentimes the challenge with people who like to know what's happening and how things are gonna happen, and they can plan and they can make sure that okay, this is what I got going. But in Uranus, it's kind of like you have to let go of all that. You need to surrender to it. You need to allow for the possibility that it's going to take you somewhere more amazing than you have ever imagined. So, so then the intent would be that we would expect. So our expectations, not being attached to it, but just expecting that this is a divine unfolding for the greatest good of all life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And it might not be easy, and it might be messy, and it might not go like like, it's not in the la la land of like, oh, it's all so perfect and great and whatever. It's all unfolding as it should. Well, it is all unfolding as it should, but sometimes it's messy in the process,
Right.
right? So the thing that I would highly recommend people do is cultivate trust, cultivate faith, cultivate optimism, and cultivate allowing. So if things aren't working out the way you want them to, or what you had envisioned, that's okay, because something better is trying to emerge.
Exactly.
So just let go, let
Yeah.
it go as much as you can. Yeah. So, oh, and also when Pluto square the nodes on July 22nd in 2023, that happens to be the Magdalene feast day. So that feels really super significant in some way that, of course, we don't have time to really explore it right here, but just planting the seed that, this is around the divine feminine, this is around the Magdalene mysteries, and there's something that is being activated by the nodes in July 22nd of 2023. Yeah, pretty cool. So here's just a quick look at some additional events. I'm not going to go into this as deeply, but Jupiter's going to square the nodes, and they'll still be in, the north node will still be in Gemini, and the south node will still be in Sagittarius, and Jupiter will be in Pisces, illuminating new possibilities. And this will happen right before the nodes shift into a new sign. So that's kind of cool that Jupiter's like, hey, let me just expand your visions and dreams.
Right at the beginning of the new year.
Right, and that's with the Pleiades. That's like still where the Pleiades are. So the North Node will be with the Pleiades, and Jupiter's going to be expanding that. And then on April 11th, Saturn will square the nodes, but by this time they'll be in Taurus. The North Node will be in Taurus, and the South Node in Scorpio. And so we could say Saturn would be like, okay, so let's now, how do we implement these new structures for great sustainable results? Right? The most effective, the most efficient, the most beneficial, sustainable results. And maybe perhaps getting ideas about how to begin that process. And then on April 12th, Jupiter will conjunct Neptune. And this is dreaming the dream onward. Like how do we continue to dream the dream, right? And you might be aware of the book, The World is As You Dream It by John Perkins. And he basically was told by Native people that we need to have a new dream because the dream we have for this world is not working anyway. So these are just a few things that are also happening. There's more, but this is just to get you started with looking into 2022 and how amazing the possibilities are when we're willing to dream. And I also think Jupiter with Neptune is expanding the celestial realm around the heart, we could say, the heart of the cosmos, the heart of the divine that lives within all of us. And maybe we can tap more into that as well. So now we're going to look at Pluto. And the main reason is because Pluto, for those people who live in the United States, would be me, that would be you. We're in a Pluto return. That is the first Pluto return for this country. Now, interestingly, here's Pluto, little planet way out here, and here's the Earth. So that's a long ways away. We could say Earth is like the third rock from the sun. So, but it takes about 248 years for Pluto to come back to a starting place. And although what happened was that back in 1762 to 1778, Pluto was in Capricorn. And in 1776, on July 4th, when the Declaration of Independence was crafted and ceremonially installed, right, as the defining document of our Declaration of Independence, Pluto was at 27 Capricorn and 33 minutes. So there's 30 degrees in a sign and 60 minutes in a degree. So it was about 27 and a half degrees of Capricorn. And that was 245 years ago in 2021. Like next year, 2022, it'll be 246 years ago. And by the time this is over, it'll be about 247 years. So so again, it's not exactly 248 years. Sometimes it comes back a little sooner, sometimes a little later, partly due to the elliptical orbit of Pluto. But what happened is in this April of 2021, Pluto came within less than a degree of the US Pluto. And so it was about 45 minutes from being exact, and it will be about 20 minutes from being exact when it stations direct in October 10th of 2023. So we could say from April of 2021 to October of 2023, the US is in a Pluto cycle. What does that mean? Why do we care?
Right.
What in the world? So Pluto initiations are about dying to something and letting go. And usually it's our false self. And we could say that the United States had a vision, you know, all people are created equally. We'll look more at that vision in a moment. But it's never really lived up to that vision, to that intention. And it declared that intention and put it in place on a date when there was some star magic that was happening. And, you know, we don't have time to go into that, but I'm thinking I should probably add that to the free page as well. So if people want to find out more about that. Anyway, but it's like dying to a perception of who we are or a belief about ourselves, anything that limits who we are, especially due to fear of something or not being good enough or failing or, you know, whatever the shadowy fear things are, or wanting to be in power and control, which seems like what the US government has really been about, not for the people, but how to control the people. So that has to die. That can't continue on. And I think that more of the shadow places are going to be revealed around some of what's been going on behind the scenes. Anyway, it's a way of being that no longer serves, it's dying. It's an identity that limits living from our true self. And the United States has not been living from its true self. So if you are in a Pluto cycle, these are the things happening personally. But if a country is on the Pluto cycle, these are the things happening for everybody in the country to like really look at, okay, are we living up to the intent? I would say no.
Right.
My personal opinion, right? Anyway, but Pluto operates through chaos, powerlessness, and events beyond our control. So guess what happened in 2020?
Right.
We had chaos and powerlessness and events beyond our control. And although some people were trying to control the events, I guess, or it seemed like they were. And really it's about facing our shadow and our deepest fears so that we're no longer limited or defined by these fears. Because unless we're willing to look at them, they're underneath running the show. And then the idea that reward and punishment, good or bad, that we could get out of a Pluto cycle by being good, you can't. If something needs to die, it's going to die, and you can't stop it. You cannot stop it. And I think I might have shared this another time, but there was a time in my life when I thought I was doing everything right and it was still falling apart. And I was like, why am I being punished? But what I realized later, looking back, was I wasn't being punished. I was being redirected to a better life, to a happier life. And so that's really the intent always, when we can allow ourselves to embrace that intention. And being good or bad, or being good, won't get you out of having to let go, having to surrender, having to die to some aspect or identity or way of being or whatever that's about. So it is about transformation, whether you want it or not.
Well, and when you were speaking into, you know, look what happened in 2020, I think it's important for everyone watching this, because there's people all over the world that are going to be watching this.
Yeah.
What happens in the US has a tendency to bleed over everywhere. So, yeah.
And we, you know,
I
I'm
get a little
really
messy over here.
the whole planet is dealing with Pluto and Capricorn. So the US just happens to now be dealing with it in terms of a personal country way, right? So, but everything that's being said, and ultimately looking at the well, I guess we'll get to that in a minute, but the structures of our economics, our education system, in the US, our government, our, you know, all of our institutions are up for review. And not just in the US, it's across the planet, but definitely the US is going to have to like really look at this seriously because of the Pluto return. But it's happening all over. So yeah, you're right. It's not, it does bleed over into all right. So just to keep this in perspective, because Pluto, it's like oftentimes when people are in Pluto cycles, or that Pluto is a major force, and really we could say Pluto was a major force in 2020, along with Saturn and Jupiter, all in Capricorn. And we knew something was going to happen, but we didn't know what. And, it was like being in hell, right? So it's like, but the intent is not to put you in hell. The intent is to go through that transformational process, to die and be reborn, to be the caterpillar who becomes the butterfly, or to be the phoenix who dies to its old self and is, can be rebirthed into something else, and ultimately discover, by going through that death and rebirth process, the buried treasure within. And that happens once we've faced the fear, the grief, the pain, the rage, the aggression, the jealousy, etc. And that has been embraced and transformed. And then that reveals our greatest strengths and gifts when that happens. And so it's like running from it doesn't help. And ultimately, I guess that the caterpillar is pretty brilliant, because it creates a chrysalis around itself and it can't get out. It's like, it may not want to be there, and it may be really uncomfortable dissolving and losing its whole identity of what it was as a caterpillar, but it cannot get out of that process because it is stuck inside that chrysalis. Whereas sometimes, we as humans, maybe we just try to run away from it, and we can to some degree. But then we don't get the transformation, then we don't get the gifts. so the ideally we embrace it, and we look at it. So what's going to happen is there are going to be 3 exact passes in 2022 of Pluto over the US. Pluto first on February 19th, then on July 11th, and then on December 29th. And again, this will last, actually the cycle will move beyond the 1 degree of the US chart in January of 2024. And interestingly, so we could say Pluto is an underworld initiator, the death and rebirth process, having to let go of and surrender to and face our fears and all of those things. Chiron is similar. It's in Aries, and it's going to pass the US natal Chiron in July of 2023. So if we don't get it in 2022, we'll have more opportunity. But hopefully, the idea is surrender and just allow and just trust that, oh, this is here to be of great support. This is here to bring me into being who I truly am and not just who I think I am, right? Yep. And to die to all those false senses of self. So Pluto is a cultural or collective death and rebirth initiation that is happening now, especially Pluto in Capricorn, because it has so much to do with these inherent structures that we talked about: the government, the economics, the education, the healthcare, climate crisis, spiritual fundamentalism. We could go on and on. Those are just to name a few of them that are now being tested and will be tested further. And especially when these structures have been sort of co-opted by those who want to be in control and manipulate and limit our freedom. And, if you think about the US, the whole thing was founded on our freedom. So how can Pluto penetrate into the hidden lies and manipulation for power and control that have been going on for a couple of centuries or more? And how is it bringing the shadow to light so that it can be purified and transformed, so a new birth can occur? And so being reborn to the original intent of what the US was all about. And so I took a look at the US the Declaration, and created these points some years ago. And I just thought, oh, might be good to energize them now.
Yeah.
Because this is a big declaration, and it was purposely and ceremonially put into place on July 4th of 1776, when the sun was with the star Sirius. So it was declaring that all people are created equally, even though I don't know that the founding fathers truly believed that, but it declared it anyway, right? All people have basic rights that no one should be able to take away. These rights are our divine inheritance, so nobody should be able to take them away, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because that's definitely, those are the words, right? True and just government is created by the people for the people to protect these rights. Government gets its power from the people it governs, And if government doesn't protect these rights, then the people have the right to change the government. So that, I mean, who knows, maybe that's going to need to happen, because it feels like that's forgotten. And that a lot of the politicians, they're just, paid by the big corporations, and they're doing their bidding, and they're not really doing the bidding of the people. So what are we going to need to do? How is Pluto going to bring that down or expose more of that, so that we can, like, in a sense, really create the space for this intention to be fully expressed and lived. And to me, this is the path of heart.
Right.
Right. Anyway, so now for people that are going through, who have strong Plutos at, say, as part of their natal signature, or they're in a Pluto cycle, or a country that's going through a Pluto process, or a planet that's going through a Pluto process, it is a teacher, guide, and initiator about empowerment. But the only way we can be empowered is through transforming shadow and facing fears. So these might be some helpful questions. And again, you can have access to this and come back to these questions. And I highly recommend journaling on them, meditating on them, or whatever works for you. But here are some questions for you. Are you willing to surrender and face your deepest fears? Some days more than others.
Right.
We're human, right? But it's just a good question to keep in mind, like, oh, things are not working out, and I'm trying to fix it and change it and control it, and maybe I just need to surrender and let it go. In fact, I personally in a Pluto cycle as we speak, and I've had to do that this year. I've had to let go of some things, some really big things. And it wasn't easy, and I kind of resisted a little bit at first, but surrendering to it and letting it go has been so good. So I highly recommend it. Are you in denial of what scares you, blaming others rather than looking at what is really going on for you? This is something that people tend to do, and it's easier to project that what we're afraid of, or what we're worried about, or what we maybe, like, it's like you are accusing somebody of being a certain way when it's really you that's that way. So it's like, yeah, Pluto really gets us to look at that. And then, are you experiencing events beyond your control that are bringing up fears you didn't even know you had? This is such a good question. And then, are you at the effect of addictions, expectations, limited perspectives that are holding you back from experiencing the magnificence of your true self? Such a good question. And then, are you embracing what scares you, trusting that in doing so, you will ultimately be empowered in ways you haven't yet imagined? And there's this great story that from Ursula Le Guin. She wrote this trilogy of books called Earthsea trilogy. But one of the things is that there's a wizard who calls a dark, shadowy figure from the underworld, and it starts chasing him, and it's trying to kill him. And he finally is told, you need to stop, turn around, and face it. Because if you keep running, it's going to take you out. Because you're going to use up all your energy running from it. But if you stop, and you stop being the hunted, but become the hunter. And it's just this beautiful reminder of Pluto, like what we need to do in Pluto cycles. We need to stop running from what we're afraid of and just go, okay, I'm going to face it. I don't care how scared I am. I don't care how horrible or challenging or how much it feels like I'm in hell. But I'm going to really look at that. And ultimately in the story, when the young wizard does that, it becomes super empowered. And his wizardry skills are like magnified, and there's, it becomes like a golden age in the land, so to speak, right? So
right. I want to interject something here for all of our listeners, because I get the wonderful advantage of interviewing all of you, and whether or not the listeners get to listen to all of what's being said, who knows, but I get that. And I just interviewed Elizabeth Wood today, who talks exactly about this. So I would really, and she, I think, is slated for right before Kaylin. So I would encourage all of our listeners to listen to all of that Kaylin is telling us about Pluto, and realize that this is a gift from the divine, so that we can bring in, just like you said in the story, bring in more light. And this is how we do it. The divine is giving us this golden opportunity to bring in more light to the planet instead of running and covering up our head until it's over.
Maybe if I hide my head long enough, it'll just go away.
Right. No, it's not going.
Not going.
So let's just create some light from it.
Right. Okay, so now I just want to shift gears a little bit. I have been to Prophecy Rock, and for some reason, as I was thinking about this presentation on what's happening in 2022, I just, this came up in my awareness. And so I'm not going to share everything that's here, but so people can go back and look at it. But basically, going to Prophecy Rock is like amazing. It's like this petroglyph on a rock. But if you don't understand what it's doing here, then it's like, But this is the symbol of Great Spirit, and it's holding the timeline. And where it touches the timeline is where Great Spirit is supposed to re-enter or return, so to speak. And then it has these two paths. And the top path is the path of the two-hearted. We're going to talk a little bit about that more in a moment. And the path of the one-hearted. And the two-hearted are the ones that, it's like when you see this squiggly line here, that's the path of destruction. And this is the path of being in balance with the earth and nature. And so, and you know, it's also got prophecies about different times and so on that you can look into a little bit more. But the path of the two-hearted is, these are people who are powered over others and greed, driven by power over others and greed. And they think with their head rather than their heart. And then the path of the one-hearted are the ones that are really coming from their heart, and they're leading, that's leading them to the harmony and balance, and you know, being in balance with the earth and with each other and all of that. So what we want to really tune into, and here's when I think about this, the two-hearted, it's not like you have actually two hearts, they have two hearts, right. But their heart, they've been disconnected from the cosmic heart or the divine heart, or however you want to define that heart, that is the heart of our reality, right? It's the great mystery, the heart of great mystery that is always here to be supportive and loving and kind and you know, all of that for all of life, not just some of life. And the two-hearted somehow get split from that, and then they forget their connection to the one heart. So interestingly, this is the timeline. This shows where there's a point of no return from the two-hearted path. So if those who are on the two-hearted path don't like drop down to the one-hearted path, so not so good. So if we think about and then this these circles here are showing where there's where there's the last chance, great purification, and when the great purification happens, then the corn's going to grow in abundance, and Great Spirit will return, and the path of life continues forever, rather than goes off into destruction. So I was thinking, you know, let's really think about how are we living this path? How are we connecting? Are we coming from our heart? This is, you know, hearts wide open. How are we wide open with our heart? How are we loving ourselves? And then from a place of being able to really love who we are, we can love all of life and all of the world and everything in it. So some questions you might want to ask, journal, meditate on are, am I living on the one-hearted path? Am I living with my heart wide open, forgiving, grateful, compassionate, and kind, even in challenging times? Because that's the true test. Like, you know, people can, it's like easy to be more generous and one-hearted and, you know, all of that when things are going easily. But that's not the times we live in right now. So can we do this even in challenging times? And if you can, it's kind of like the accomplishment of that is far greater than if it was an easy time.
Yeah.
Far greater. Just amazing. And can we do this even when it feels like I'm in hell, or, you know, I'm feeling challenged to the core of my being to stay present and to stay open and to trust that somehow I will get through this. And on the other side, my life is going to be so much better, or our life as a planet will be so much better, because we're definitely going through that now. So any questions or anything? I know I'm talking a lot and fast.
I know, I know you're talking a lot and fast because you have a lot you want to say. So I'm not going to interrupt you.
Okay. All right.
Keep going.
All right. So, and there's other prophecies. So that's the Hopi prophecy. And they also talk about, that it's up to people with good, pure hearts who are not afraid to fulfill their destiny of peace and plenty for this world. So, because we're standing at a crossroads, and everlasting, it's either everlasting life or total destruction.
Right.
What are you going to choose?
Yes.
It kind of feels like, wow, that's pretty intense. But we believe that human beings' spiritual power through prayer is so strong that it decides life on earth. And we are the ones we've been waiting for. So, so again, and it comes back to this one-hearted or two-hearted, how are we staying in our heart? Are we staying in that one-hearted place that is a benefit to everyone? And I think that it was the Hopis who also said, peace, plenty, and illumination for all. That's the bottom line here. So how do we have peace, plenty, and illumination for all? So this looks like kind of like a golden age to me.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd put that in there. But the Mayans, the Tibetans, the Karo, the Egyptians, all of them had these prophecies along with a lot of other cultures that I didn't have room for. So just, and we're seeding and birthing a new reality that the Egyptians said it was seeding, budding, blooming, and fruiting of the heart. I love that. And the Mayans and Tibetans speak of the age of flowers, the flowering of the heart. And the Karo call it the age of keeping community or ethnic group in the Cusco region of peace and illumination. They call it. Oh, I think I messed that up a little bit. Okay. Anyway, but these planetary alignments that are happening now are here to remind us it's time to let go of the past and open our hearts to the cosmic codes we all carry within, awakening us to the divine love, guiding us toward our destiny when we surrender, allow, and forgive. So good. I mean, the thing is that everybody has it. Some people just have forgotten or have gotten sidetracked off of that. So, so this is our opportunity, is to really be that. And if there are enough of us who are really coming from that heart place, from, like I like to call it, being a superconductor of love, from that superconductive state where nothing of a lower vibrational energy can penetrate that field, then we change the whole reality. And no matter how much destructive energy is there, it cannot be sustained. It just will have to automatically shift with the rest of it. So that's pretty cool. So I'm just going to end this with a few more questions for people. How is it that I'm experiencing such great peace and love within myself, regardless of what is going on in the outer world?
Yeah.
Why is my heart growing more open, loving, compassionate, and forgiving every day? Why am I experiencing more and more magic and mystery all around me? And then this quote, it really rocked my world when I was asking a question about, am I on the right track?
Right.
I was out for my morning walk and I found this heart rock, but before finding the heart rock, I heard this quote. I was listening to this book on tape or on YouTube. Actually, you can find it on YouTube, The Teachings of Don Juan, A Yaqui Way of Knowledge by Carlos Castaneda. And it just, the quote was rocking me. And then I found the heart rock. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm so rocked. So I thought it'd be a great way to kind of end this part of it by saying all paths are the same. They lead nowhere. I was like, wait, nowhere? What do you mean nowhere? Because we have this sense of it leads somewhere, but
right.
So the question is, does this path have a heart? If it does, the path is good. If it doesn't, it is of no use. Both paths lead nowhere, but one has heart, the other doesn't. One makes for a joyful journey as long as you follow it. You are one with it. The other one will make you curse your life. One makes you strong and the other weakens you. I'm just like, yes, we have to follow the path of heart. Being the one-hearted, follow the path of heart. And it doesn't matter where it's taking you because it's not taking you anywhere anyway.
Right.
So anyway, so that's what I got. Any questions?
Kaylin, that was amazing. I don't have any questions. I just really want to thank you for, oh my goodness, sharing all your wisdom with us. And, just a word to our listeners, information is power. Now you know how to prepare. Now you know what's coming. So start leaning in and letting go of whatever isn't serving you. I think if everybody just takes a moment and is quiet, we already know what needs to fall away. So just lean into it. And,
So beautifully said. It's like, you can't teach surrender.
no, you cannot.
It'd be great if we could teach it, but if we have the intent to surrender, and some days we'll surrender better than others, and that's okay. And part of the surrender is also realizing sometimes we're not really surrendering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, or resisting. It's like, there was that song, I'm just checked in to see what condition my condition is in. I often think of that as I'm checking in to see what condition my resistance is in.
There you go. There you go.
Right.
Well, Caitlin, this has been so fun. Thank you. Thank you so much. I know that all our listeners are going to enjoy this and go back and watch it again and again. So I really appreciate
Thank you. My pleasure, from my heart to all of yours.